Oh boy, the heat is on and the conflict has begun. That's right, Goku and the gang have finally arrived into Daima World 1, and all hell is about to break loose between Gomah, Goku, and Anrisu. Well, I'm assuming Anrisu, because at some point she has to eventually join in, right? But again, this is going to be my episode 14 review. Spoilers, if you haven't seen the episode yet, please go watch the episode, then come back to watch my review, because I will spoil a couple things about this, because, hey, it's why you come to the review, right? I gotta talk about this stuff. I gotta be open about what's happening. So with that said and done, that's your spoiler review. Let's get into it. So episode 14 starts off with dealing with Gomah and his decision to shut down the warp fish. So the warp fishes are closed, so now no one can get into any of the Demon World. So they've shut them down. Gomah's like, yep, I got it. I don't have to worry about it. They can't get into Demon World 1. And then on top of that, he's brought in the entire, or as much of the demon military police to guard the palace of Demon World 1. And on top of that, he brought in a special unit force to specifically guard the inside of the castle. And when I saw this group, I was like, oh, we're just getting a typical whatever kind of group. And then they're like, King Gomah. Oh, they go and do their little poses. And then the statues start lifting up, and the pillars start lifting up. And then I'm like, what is it? And then the lights cut off, and I'm like, oh my God, we're getting a freaking Ginu Force. We're literally getting another Ginu Force. And I'm not joking when I say this. Like, these guys are basically just another Ginu Force. And if any of you try to hate on it, just understand this is very much a Toriyama humor thing. Like, he loves this wacky, goofy, over the top, silly stuff. So this is 100% up his alley, and it's 100% okay. Like, this was super funny. Like, they were doing the goofy poses. They were saying their names with the number they are in the unit. Now, were their poses anywhere as eccentric and over the top as the Ginu Force? Absolutely not. They were actually really tame in comparison. However, they went full Ginu Force. They went full on Toko Sentai posing and everything like your Power Rangers and stuff. In fact, it was like watching the Ginu Force. It was like watching the Saiyan Man. It was hilarious. And I'm like, you got this serious moment of Gomah, like, I can't allow Goku and his team to get in here. So I got to have the best of my military guard my castle. Here they are, the best of the best. And apparently he's never actually really seen them, because he seemed really shocked to that they even did their little dancing. Like, he was like, what the f-? So apparently Gomah hasn't really ever messed with them. But like Dekisu called them in, and he's like, they're right over there, Gomah, that's the special forces. And that's when they're like, oh no, and jumped up and did that. But while they're doing their posing and their dancing, Gomah's like, oh my God, what the hell is happening right now? And after they do everything, all their little posing, and they're getting their, set up their little formation stuff, they tore up the entire lobby room. Gomah's like, just in this very just defeated voice, Gomah's like, okay, thank you. Alrighty, we're moving on from this. And he tells them, like, you are here to guard the castle, and if these intruders get in here, you're to handle with them. Of course, they're like, what do they look like? And they're like, well, they're children, but don't be fooled by them. Like, you children? He goes, they're actually adults that look like children. Of course, this group is like, man, whatever. That's not even a big deal. I don't care. And of course, Dekisu gets on him, and he's like, no, these guys have defeated Majin Buu and 2 of the Tamagamis. They are not to be messed with. They're not to be taken lightly. But of course, these guys don't believe it. They're like, yeah, right, whatever. So of course, Dekisu and Gomah are like, well, this is your job, and by the way, you're going to pay for the damage you caused to my lobby. And they left and went back to his throne room and whatnot. And of course, the special force guys, they're like, we're hungry, let's go find the convenience store. They go to the convenience store, run into Do and Ku while they're there. And this is like another funny interactive moment, just for gags, just for fun. You got Do and Ku showing up, and they're just like, oh my God, look at all the food these guys are buying. And the special force is like, these are kids, they're just looking up to us. And they buy Do and Ku a candy bar and all this wacky stuff. It was just for funny. That little moment with Do and Ku is just for funny. Nothing happens there. They don't even know who they are. It was just to have a fun comedic moment. Because you got to remember, Dragon Ball is going to have comedic moments. It's not all serious. You guys have got to stop thinking this series is all 100% of the time serious. The show is full of wackiness. In fact, it's like 50-50. 50% wacky, 50% serious. And if you get upset that there's wackiness, then you're just kind of missing the whole concept of this series. It's a comedic series with some seriousness, like stuff like this. Do and Coo being all like, oh my god, look at all the food these guys are buying. These guys trying to buy them candy and realize they're broke and only buying them 2 candy bars. That's all silly, wacky Dragon Ball humor. That silly, wacky Toriyama thing. It's all within that. So after they leave and they're like, kids shouldn't be eating a bunch of candy and whatnot, we fade over to Anrisu. She's looking out and seeing, the guards looking out, where she's staying. They got a bunch of guards and they're all looking around. She's just staring out there. So when we cut back over to Goku and them, they are making their way to Warp Fish and they find out that Warp Fish has been turned off. And they're like, how are we gonna get through if Warp Fish is turned off? Like, what are we supposed? How are we gonna get over there? Is there any other way to get over there? And they're like, no, there's no other way. Hibis is like telling Vegeta's like, no, there's no other way and whatnot. And they're talking about the tunnels where the light shields have been guarding them off. They're like, that's the only other way through, and we can't get through. Goku's like, well, I want to try something here. So he uses the power pole and extends it down to C. And they're like, what are you doing? If you touch this, you're going to get hurt. You're going to die. And that was that shot I saw from last week. I thought Goku was like falling into like this weird spiderweb thing. I just mislooked at it. It's the shield. So he's falling into the shield underneath, because when he sends the power pole down, the power pole hits the shield and it sends a shockwave back up and electrocutes him, and he falls over and he's falling down. He's passed out. Like, it shocked him really hard. So they're like, holy shit, Goku's falling. Like, what are we gonna do? And Neva steps out of the ship and says, all right, I guess it's time for me to breathe in some fresh demon air. And he starts reciting this chant. And Piccolo, I don't know if Piccolo recognizes what he's saying in the sense of like understanding, but just is shocked that what he's hearing, because he's like, okay, this is something new, right? Because Piccolo just has this really shocked look on his face. He's the one that reacts like this, but he chants this incantation. His eyes beam red for a quick second. He has this orb and he shoots the orb straight up into the shield that's connecting Demon World 3 and Demon World 2. And yes, last week I said the way they've structured it, you had like Demon World 3 is the outside, then 2, then 1 as you go inward. And that's exactly how it's structured. Demon World 3 is the outside, Demon World 2 is the middle, Demon World 1 is the innermost section. I said that last week. I mean, it doesn't really matter either way. I just was interested when they said that. But anyway, he sends it up and the shield starts to retract and evaporate and it's gone. And then he says the chant again and drops the orb down and he erases the shield for the connection between Demon World 2 and 1. And, Goku wakes up and he comes to right before it happens. And he's like, oh my God, what is happening? And he jumps back up to the ship and everyone's like, their shields, they're gone. Why the heck are the shields gone? You did this. And Piccolo stepped up. He goes, no other Namekian could have done what you just did. You really are this legendary Namekian. He's just completely shocked and just in awe of what Neva can actually do. Because you have to remember, he called forth the Earth Dragon out of its slumber, out of them being stone orbs, made them usable again, and then he does this stuff. Like, Neva can do some crazy things, but it makes sense. The Namekians always had this magical, ethereal concept, not ethereal, but this magical uniqueness about them since the original series. And every time they add something to the lore of Dragon Ball, where they mention like dragons, not just dragons, but like magic and crazy techniques and crazy abilities, like Namekians always kind of got you pulled into it. So that, the Namekian Book of Life, the Namekian Book of Lore stuff, the Namekians have always had this connection to this aspect of the series from the jump. Once they've been revealed to be Namekians, like, they've always kind of been pulled into it. Super did it, and so on and so forth. So this isn't anything new, but to see that Neva is this powerful kind of shows you like what another Namekian could possibly be. Could we see Dende become this powerful in the future? Maybe. We know he's probably not by the time you get to the end of the Z story with Goku and Oob fighting at the tournament. At least we don't know. We didn't see Dende do anything at that part of the series, right? But is it possible that Dende could learn from Neva, or get books and lectures from Neva before they leave the Demon World, and he just spends the next several years learning? Absolutely, I think we could, and we might see that. I think that'd be really cool. But when they asked Neva, they're like, you got rid of the shields, that means you put the shields there. why. And Neva goes, before the shields got put into place, Demon World 2 was just running rampant with chaos and bad people, because he was like the really bad outlaws and ruffians of Demon World 3 would come up here and mess with our people of Demon World 2, and then the really pompous, rich, hoity-toity people of Demon World 1 would come over here and just be super condescending. So Neva's like, my people, the Namekians, we're being bothered constantly. And it was more so towards the Namekians in general, but it was like the whole Demon World 2 was just getting harassed by both Demon World 1 and Demon World 3, and Neva got tired of it. And of course the Namekians were being abused and used for the fact that they can use their magic and stuff like that. So he also said that that was also one of the reasons that drove the Namekians to want to leave, to go to the outside world, because of the constant harassment from Demon World 1 and Demon World 3. So Neva uses his magic, puts the shields in place so that now the worlds are separated, and then the warp fish was created to facilitate people being able to go to each world, but you basically have to get approval and you can't just really go back and forth. So the shields were there because of Neva, and that's crazy like lore. Again, this is all specific to the demon world. So if any of you are getting all uppity and you know fifis about the Lord of Dragon, no, this shields thing specifically only relates to the demon realm. And Neva being able to do this again makes sense, because as they pointed out, the Namekians, their home universe is basically the demon realm. That's where they're originally from. And that has nothing to do with the Zalama, that has nothing to do with Super Shenron, that has nothing to do with either one of them. That is entirely separate fucking entity with an entirely separate fucking ordeal. The Namekians of the demon world, theirs from there, and then they migrated out. So this all, like the shields and the Neva's magic, it all basically just relates to basically Dragon Balls in particular, and then just of course stuff in the demon realm. But that was really cool information, because it's like that makes Neva even that much more powerful as a magic individual. But again, he doesn't seem to be able to use any of this magic for combat. It's strictly to, defend and protect. And it makes sense with what he said a couple weeks ago when he said that, Namekians should use our abilities and our magic and our strength for defense, not for, violence and stuff like that. Of course, a couple weeks ago they were like, when he said that, they all looked at Piccolo, which it's true, because yes, Piccolo being Demon King Piccolo and then reincarnating himself into his own son Junior version, and then because it is Piccolo Jr. is its own entity, but he's also like a reincarnated version of the Demon King Piccolo. But again, Piccolo Jr. is his own entity. And then up until, spending those 5 months with Gohan in the wilderness, Piccolo was a bad guy for the most part. He wanted to create violence. He wanted to do bad things. But Piccolo's been ready to throw hands since the jump. So like Piccolo's always been a person that's willing for violence. And so of course, when Neva mentioned that a couple weeks ago, they were like, kind of messed up there, right? They were just poking fun at Piccolo, but this was just a crazy moment for everyone, because now the worlds are back open, all three are connected, and they dive into the tunnel to go to Demon World 1. They're flying through, they're telling Gloria like, yo, we gotta ease up on the ship. He's like, I can't, I'm like literally in free fall. So as they're about to exit, they say, hey, we gotta jump ship, the ship's not gonna survive, so we just fly out, we just jump out, fly out the rest of the way, we can fly, we're good. So they all jump out, grab the Dragon Balls, they're flying, the ship crash lands, the couple of the troops patrol are looking around, oh, that's a trap, and they look up and they're like, I don't know what's going on, but like the gate section looks like it's down, we can't really tell. And then like they notice people falling, and then they realize that there's people falling, so they look at the binoculars, they find out that it's Goku and them, they alert Gomah, or not Gomah, they alert Degasu. Degasu's like, Gomah, sir, look, and they pull up the screen to show that they have made it to Demon World 1. And Gomah's like, how did this happen? Didn't you turn off the warp fish? And he was like, yeah, I did turn off the warp fish, but the shields between the worlds are gone. They've been removed. That's how they got here. So now Gomah's like, completely, he's done now. And Gomah's like, that's it. Everyone just attack them, go off on them, attack them. So that leads the episode, ends basically with Goku and everyone having to run for cover because they're getting blasted by basically like 90% of the entire Demon World military. And so next episode, when we're seeing the clips for a bit, a fight's about to happen, like a big fight. And I think from here forward, we're going to get Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Glorio, Shin. We're about to get a bunch of fights going. We're about to get fights with the military police. We're about to get fights probably with Do and Ku. We're going to get fights with the special force Ginu's guys. We're about to get all of that. So that things are starting to heat up now. Like we're about to be full, in my opinion, full steamroll into more action, less silly at this point. Like the series has been kind of like teetering back and forth with like, here's some action, here's comedy, and then like for the most part they've been like kind of equal, but then they go teeter-totter back and forth throughout the season. I think from here out, for the rest of the episodes, fun, finishing out January, finishing out February, and finishing out in March, we're gonna get like way more action than anything, and it makes sense because they're in World 1, the climax is there, we're gonna get it, and that's what's gonna happen. But one of the things I want to point out here is the Kais kind of just have this feeling, because remember in the very first episode when Neva uses his magic to call the Dragon Balls and they start using the magic and stuff, Shin and Kibito are like, did you feel that? And they're like, yeah, I felt that. So like they kind of have this connection to where they can feel this type of magic that Neva uses. So when Neva used the magic again to remove the shields, both Degasu and Anrisu both noticed it. Anrisu doesn't say anything, like she just kind of murmurs it to herself, but Degasu felt it, and he tried to bring it up to Gomah, but of course Gomah doesn't know any of this stuff. So they didn't really know what it was. Like they were like, we felt something happened, something big magically just happened, but of course they didn't know what, and then of course they find out that they broke through. So the shields were gone. So I'm kind of curious to see like how they are connected to that fact. I hope they answer that. I don't know if they will, but I hope they answer that as to why the Kais or the Glens kind of can have this sixth sense of when Neva uses his magic. Like I just kind of want to know about that, because I thought that was just an interesting little tidbit that after he got rid of the shields, both Degasu and Anrisu reacted of like, wonder what that was, because that was big magic. But will we ever get that answer? I don't know. When it comes to this series, you get some interesting concepts. Not everything gets answered. Some things do, some things don't. We'll just have to live with it and roll with it. But I do hope we get that answer at least. Well, like I said, moving forward, this series, we're about to get a lot more action. I got a feeling we're going to be like 75-25. 75 action, 25 silly from here on out to the end of the series. This episode, nothing crazy really happened. No big fights or big climaxes or anything. It was just kind of a silly episode with a huge big hype moment to build you into next week. Do I think after last week's episode that this episode maybe should have hit harder to really reel people back, to make them go, yes, after last week, thank you, let's go? Yes, I do. I think there should have been a little bit more oomph, a little bit more intensity, a little bit more, maybe just longer sections. Like maybe they should have dedicated the last 5 minutes to the series of this episode to them fighting and dealing with the army, arriving, landing, and dealing with the army, and then you can end the episode moving back into like the fight continuing. But I think the episode would have done better if it ended with like us actually seeing everyone fight instead of landing, having to go, get a better position, hide for a second so they can put Bulma down and Hibis down and Ponzi down, so then they can turn around and fight. Because last week's episode, again, literally served no purpose outside of like that fun gag with the giants. And the only thing plot relevant was when Gomah telling them to shut down the fish. This episode followed up with stuff with Gomah, building up to his protection of trying to stay away from Goku. Then we got that stuff with Neva, which was really cool. And it was cool to find out that Neva's the one that put the shields there. And it was cool. It looked great, by the way. Like the animation looked great for that scene in particular. Like the whole episodes for this series have looked great. But like when they really want to hammer in that animation for crazy effects, they do a great job. But I do think this episode would have benefited a little bit better if they just spent the last 5-6 minutes of the episode letting Goku and them start fighting the army, and then cut to say, we'll just continue this stuff next week. I just think it would have been better overall. Still love the episode. I still think it was a great episode. It was much better than last week's in my opinion, because again, last week's was just, it is what it is. This week, we got a lot more. We got some more. We learned a little bit more about Neva. We learned a little bit more about the universe of the Demon Realm. We learned a little bit. We got introduced for a couple new characters. And we got set up for that build-up of from here out. Like I said in the beginning, the heat is on. Things are about to start to go down. We're about to see everybody start fighting everybody. It's going to be a good time moving forward. If you're the fan that only loves the action, well, this is probably next few weeks is going to be your favorite time of this series. I've been having a blast with the series so far, but I do think this episode would have been better again. Like I said, if the last 5 minutes would have been dedicated to a little bit more action, but I've been loving every episode nonetheless. Some episodes are better than others, but hey, I'm ready for next week. I think next week is going to be really great. The action's here. I love the lore bit when they do it, but I'm ready for some more action myself. So that's going to be my review of episode 14 of Dragon Ball Daima. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this episode. What I missed. Did I cover things that you wanted to cover? Did I miss stuff that you wanted me to cover? And as always, if you like what you see here and you want to see more, smash the subscribe button, turn the thumbs up blue. I'll be doing this stuff. If you haven't seen the podcast, I have a podcast on my channel as well. But hey, that's going to be it for the review, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, everybody. See ya.